This week, MPs reconfirmed that misleading the House of Commons is a cardinal sin. So why are they now ignoring this?
Just remember one thing, Mr. Speaker. We had the fastest vaccine rollout in the world. We had that because of our freedoms after leaving the European Union.
It's completely untrue. EU legislation enacted into British law already allow countries to temporarily authorise vaccines without waiting for approval from the European Medicines Agency. In fact, the UK government always made it clear that it could authorise vaccines unilaterally under European law before we left the EU.
We put 20,000 more police officers on the street.
Again, it's not true. In 2010, there were about 145,000 police officers in England and Wales. Here is the government's own policing minister, Chris Philp, to confirm it.
The previous peak was in 2010 at 145,000 police officers.
The government's target was to deliver 149,000 police officers by the end of March. Again, here is the government's policing minister.
We are on track by the end of March, we believe. We'll get the figures confirmed in a few weeks' time, but we believe we're on track to deliver 149,000 officers.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out that even if the government has hit that target, it will be delivering just 4,000 more police officers in England and Wales than we had in 2010. In fact, even the policing minister himself has now managed to work that one out.
That is 4,000 more than the previous peak in March 2010.
So when the Prime Minister says this,
we put 20,000 more police officers on the street.
He's again talking complete bollocks. It's actually just 4,000 more police officers than we had in 2010. And that's just part of the story, because the government is also ignoring the increase in population since 2010. In fact, per capita, with an increasing population, as a result of Conservative Party policies, by the end of this Parliament, we'll have fewer police on our streets than we did a decade ago. And again, the Prime Minister knows it.
I'd say my belief is that the bill is compliant with the ECHR.
It was a statement made more than once by Rishi Sunak about his illegal migration bill as he appeared before the House of Commons Liaison Committee on March 28th.
So we believe that our bill is compliant with the ECHR.
But again, it simply isn't true. Sunak's illegal migration bill is a flagrant breach of the government's obligations under both the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights. It says as much on the front page of the bill.
The bill, very unusually, on the cover, says the Home Secretary is unable to make a statement that the provisions of the illegal migration bill are compatible with the Convention rights.
And now a joint committee on human rights has published a damning verdict after its legislative scrutiny of the government's bill. The report, which runs to 154 pages, concludes that this bill breaches a number of the UK's international human rights obligations and risks breaching others. The committee found that it's overwhelmingly clear that the government's illegal migration bill breaches a number of the UK's international legal obligations, including the European Convention on Human Rights and the Refugee Convention, and it also risks breaching others. The damning report published by the Joint Committee found that key provisions that failed to meet the UK's obligations include severely restricting human rights claims, broad detention and search powers, and denying protections to modern slavery victims. So how is the Prime Minister saying this not misleading?
I'd say my belief is that the bill is compliant with the ECHR.
It's just shameless.
We're delivering record employment and the fastest wage growth in years.
When looking at real wages, which are adjusted for inflation, growth is actually falling, and the Prime Minister knows it.
We are reducing waiting lists.
The latest figures show the number of cases waiting for NHS consultant-led treatment in England has actually reached a record high of 7.4 million.
What I'm not going to do is ask ordinary families up and down the country to pay an extra £1,000 a year to meet the pay demands of the union bosses. That wouldn't be right and it wouldn't be fair.
It's just more shameless bollocks. There are about 28 million households in the UK, and the Prime Minister is telling us a real terms pay rise for public sector workers will cost every one of them an extra £1,000. It's economically illiterate, completely untrue, and again the Prime Minister knows it. It assumes all 28 million UK households would make exactly the same contribution in tax. But some households don't pay income tax, and the amount of tax paid varies widely from household to household, with the best off paying more. And any pay rise for public sector workers will itself be taxable, and that tax is included within the 28 billion, which goes straight back to the government. And all this comes just months after the Prime Minister promised the country this.
So one of my first jobs is to try and restore trust in government.
And that starts with being honest with people.
So having reconfirmed this week that misleading Parliament is a cardinal sin, why are MPs turning a blind eye to all this?
No, Mr. Speaker, I did not attend any parties.
Well, hang on a minute. The former Chancellor was given a fixed penalty notice for attending a lockdown law-breaking birthday party arranged for former Prime Minister Boris Johnson.